Setting up virtual lab environment. So it's important that you practice what you learn here while the course goes on. For that reason, you should build your own lab. So you may think of the lab that it might contain physical dedicated servers or bare-bone hosts or other network equipment. I always think of somebody in a white lab coat and gray spiky hair and test tubes and boiling things. But no, we're going to be able to do everything in this course using the virtual environment, which is precisely what computers were made for. Now, don't worry, I'm going to help you build this lab step by step, but it will be your lab. And hold on, before you get out your calculator, all these lab environments are going to cost you nothing, just your time and patience. So let's first have a look at the requirements. When you prepare for your lab, you should make sure that your setup will meet the system requirements. Because we're going to get into using virtual machines as well as some other processor consumer tools, I highly recommend that your system is capable of handling at least 2 virtual machines simultaneously. Now, for storage. I'm not going to throw out some random numbers about the size of available hard drive space, but you really will need some. Now, if you don't have enough, you're probably going to face some problems. Now, what about memory? You don't want to have any insufficient memory fail, so I strongly advise using at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, for your processor, I think if you try this course, it means to me that you probably have a processor that will support virtualization. Now, you should activate it from BIOS if this is the first time for you using a virtual machine. Now, what about for a hypervisor? Well, VMware Player, VMware Workstation, or VirtualBox, all of them are good options to build the lab on. However, what you're going to see me do is use VMware Workstation Player because some intentionally vulnerable virtual machines work only on VMware Workstation Player. I'm just saying. And then finally, internet access. Of course, you're going to need the internet, but only when you're setting up the lab. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to need it, but it's going to be good to be able to search for extra information, so I'll leave that up to you. Now, again, before diving into the building process, I do want to show you the overview of what our lab is going to look like, and the basic idea here is to create a server that has some vulnerable web applications. Therefore, we can attack these applications from Kali Linux, which will be our attacking machine. Also, of course, we're going to need a web server to host the vulnerable web applications. So when you complete the lab with me, you will have a Kali Linux virtual machine with internet access. So when you complete the lab, you will have a Linux server as well. Now, in my case, the IP address of Kali will be 192.168.204.128. And a vulnerable server will have the address of 192.168.204.130. So these addresses may be different in your environment, but I trust you know IP addresses and subnets to know the difference. Then, of course, these machines must be able to communicate with each other.